A cramped electronics shop in Quiapo, Manila, the afternoon heat was matched only by the tension inside. The air was thick, not just with humidity, but with a sense of unease that seemed to settle over everyone present. The whir of electric fans did little to cool the nerves of those packed into the narrow aisles, their faces illuminated by the flickering glow of dozens of television screens. Outside, the city's usual chaos continued, jeepneys honking, vendors shouting, the relentless pulse of Manila life, but inside, all attention was fixed on the row of TV screens. The world outside faded away, replaced by the urgent images and voices coming from the televisions. A news anchor's voice cut through the noise, relaying a chilling warning from Beijing. "Play with fire and perish by it." The words translated on the screen seemed to echo in the small shop, making the threat feel immediate and personal. The shop owner, usually cheerful and quick with a joke, now watched with a worried frown. His hands, which normally moved confidently between remotes and receipts, trembled slightly as he adjusted the volume. For those gathered, this wasn't distant news, it was a threat at their doorstep, with the Bashi channel suddenly feeling dangerously close. The map on the screen showed just how near the flashpoint was, a narrow stretch of water now at the center of global attention. Students who'd stopped in to browse now stood frozen, the headlines suddenly personal. Their laughter and chatter had faded, replaced by anxious whispers as they tried to make sense of what this could mean for their own futures. Images of Chinese warships and jets flashed on the screen, a stark contrast to the everyday life outside. The sight of military might so close to home sent a ripple of fear through the crowd, making the threat feel all the more real. An elderly woman whispered a prayer, sensing this crisis was different from those she'd survived before. Her hands, weathered by years of hardship, trembled as she clutched her rosary, silently hoping for peace in a world that seemed to be teetering on the edge. The anchor mentioned President Marcos Jr. and the new military pact with Taiwan, a bold but risky move. The announcement brought a mix of reactions, as some saw it as a sign of strength, while others worried it might draw the country deeper into conflict. The room was filled with a mix of pride and fear, as people quietly wondered what this meant for their families and future. Some exchanged nervous glances, others stood in silent contemplation, each person wrestling with their own hopes and anxieties. As the news ended, the city's energy seemed to pause. Everyone left to grapple with the weight of what might come. The usual noise of the street was muted, replaced by a heavy silence as people stepped back into the world, changed by what they had just heard. In Manila, the threat of conflict was no longer abstract, it was real, and it was here. The city, always resilient, now braced itself for an uncertain future, its people united by a shared sense of vulnerability and hope. Beijing's anger stems from a major shift in Philippine foreign policy, a move that has sent shockwaves through the region and rattled the status quo in East Asia. In early 2025, President Marcos Jr. formalized a series of security agreements with Taiwan. While not a full military alliance, this pact marks the deepest partnership the two have ever shared, and it's a clear signal of Manila's changing priorities. The agreement covers high-level defense talks, intelligence sharing, and for the first time, joint Coast Guard patrols in the strategically vital Bashi Channel, an area that links the South China Sea to the Pacific and is crucial for both trade and security. For Manila, this is a direct response to years of Chinese pressure in the South China Sea, as well as Taiwan's constant threat of invasion. The Philippines has grown increasingly wary of China's assertiveness, and the pact is a way to push back. Now, Navy officials from the Philippines meet openly with their counterparts in Taipei, strategizing on how to counter China's hybrid warfare tactics, ranging from cyber attacks to maritime harassment. Joint patrols in the Bashi Channel send a clear message: these waters won't be ceded to Chinese control. The presence of both navies is a visible deterrent, and it's reshaping the balance of power in the region. This cooperation is a dramatic shift from previous Philippine administrations, which for decades avoided provoking Beijing and instead sought to balance relations between China and the West. President Marcos Jr. now argues that the Philippines' security is inseparable from Taiwan's fate. He's made it clear that what happens in the Taiwan Strait will directly impact Filipino lives and livelihoods. As General Bronner put it, if something happens to Taiwan, inevitably we will be involved. This sentiment is echoed across the Philippine defense establishment, which is now preparing for scenarios that were once unthinkable. The Pact is Manila's way of preparing for that reality, by forging a partnership with a neighbor facing the same threat, and by building resilience against external pressure. It's a bold move signaling that the Philippines is no longer content to sit on the sidelines. Instead, it's stepping up as a regional player, willing to take risks for its own security and for the stability of the region. The region is watching, and so is Beijing. The Philippines-Taiwan Pact is already reshaping the strategic landscape of Asia, and its consequences are only beginning to unfold. China's response was immediate and severe. Beijing sees any official ties with Taiwan as a violation of its One China principle and a direct challenge to its sovereignty. On July 18, 2025, China lodged a formal protest with Manila, demanding an end to all military exchanges with Taiwan. The warning was clear: those who play with fire will perish by it. China backed its words with action, ramping up military drills and sending dozens of warplanes across the Taiwan Strait's median line. For Beijing, the real fear is a domino effect. If the Philippines can partner with Taiwan, others might follow, shattering Taiwan's isolation. The Philippines-Taiwan Pact is now a direct obstacle to Xi Jinping's ambitions, and China is making its fury known. The United States is a central player in this unfolding drama. The U.S.-Philippines alliance, revitalized under Marcos Jr., is the backbone of Manila's security. Since 2023, the U.S. has gained access to 9 Philippine military sites, some just 200 kilometers from Taiwan. Massive joint exercises like Balikatan and Talisman Sabre now include Japan and observers from Taiwan, sending a clear signal to Beijing. The U.S. is building a regional coalition to deter Chinese aggression, while officially maintaining its One China policy. By strengthening allies like the Philippines, Washington is raising the stakes for any Chinese move on Taiwan. The American presence reassures Manila but infuriates Beijing, making the region even more volatile. The message, any attack on Taiwan or the Philippines, would trigger a powerful, coordinated response. Acing China's growing power, the Philippines is overhauling its military. For decades, the armed forces focused on internal threats, but now, a $35 billion modernization program is underway. The goal: transform the AFP into a credible force with new jets, warships, and missile systems. The focus is shifting from land to sea, with an emphasis on defending maritime territory and the Luzon Strait. U.S. and regional partners are providing training and technical support, helping the AFP adapt to high-tech warfare. This transformation signals Manila's resolve. It won't be a bystander in its own region. The Philippines is investing in its own defense, determined to stand its ground. The summer of 2025 has turned the Western Pacific into a stage for military power. U.S.-led drills like Balikatan and Talisman Sabre, involving dozens of nations, simulate defending key maritime choke points. Taiwan's participation highlights growing regional coordination. China responds with its own massive drills, simulating blockades and invasions around Taiwan. These exercises are more than training; they're political signals and psychological warfare. With rival forces operating in close quarters, the risk of an accident or miscalculation is dangerously high. The region is on edge, as both sides prepare for a war everyone hopes to avoid. The standoff is no longer theoretical; it's being rehearsed in real time. Batanes Islands, closer to Taiwan than Manila, have become a strategic front line. The Philippine military is expanding its presence, building outposts and radar stations to monitor the Bashi Channel. Under the U.S.-Philippines Defense Pact, American forces can now pre-position supplies and equipment in the region. Recent joint drills have featured amphibious landings and advanced missile systems on Batanes, sending a clear message to Beijing. For locals, the military buildup brings both anxiety and a sense of duty. Their home is now a potential flashpoint. Fishing grounds are patrolled by warships, and daily life unfolds under the shadow of global rivalry. The transformation of Batanes is a stark reminder. Great power competition is reshaping lives on the ground. The islands are no longer a backwater, they're a bulwark. The world is watching because the stakes couldn't be higher. Every headline, every breaking news alert, and every diplomatic statement is being scrutinized, as leaders and citizens alike try to grasp what's at risk. A war over Taiwan would be catastrophic, drawing in the world's largest economies and militaries. The consequences would ripple far beyond Asia, pulling in alliances and rivalries from every continent. War games predict devastating losses for all sides: ships sunk, aircraft lost, and tens of thousands of lives at risk. The human cost would be staggering, with families and communities shattered across the globe. The economic fallout would be global. The Taiwan Strait and South China Sea are vital shipping lanes carrying trillions of dollars in trade each year. Disruption here would send shockwaves through every economy, and Taiwan's microchips power the modern world. From smartphones to cars, medical devices to data centers, these tiny components are the backbone of our digital lives. A conflict would shatter supply chains, trigger a global depression, and set back technology for years. Everyday products could vanish from shelves, and entire industries might grind to a halt. This is more than a regional dispute. It's a clash of ideologies, with the world's two most powerful systems facing off in a high-stakes contest. With democracy and authoritarianism on the line, the outcome could inspire movements for freedom or embolden crackdowns on dissent. The outcome would reshape the global balance of power for decades, influencing international institutions, alliances, and the rules that govern our world. A Chinese victory could embolden autocracies. It might encourage other nations to challenge the status quo by force. On the other hand, a successful defense of Taiwan would strengthen democratic alliances, sending a powerful message about unity and resolve. That's why peace in the Western Pacific matters to every nation on Earth. The choices made here will echo in every capital, every market, and every home. The world's future may hinge on what happens next. In this moment, the eyes of humanity are fixed on Taiwan, and the outcome will shape generations to come. The region stands on a knife's edge, with no easy answers ahead. The Philippines, backed by the US, will deepen military ties with Taiwan and regional partners, while China ramps up pressure and military maneuvers. The risk of miscalculation is real. One wrong move could trigger a wider conflict. The US must balance deterrence with diplomacy, keeping lines open with Beijing to avoid disaster. Internal politics in Taiwan could further complicate the situation. This is about more than disputed islands. It's about the future of global trade, sovereignty, and the rules-based order. The choices made in Manila, Beijing, and Washington will echo for decades. The world is watching, hoping for peace, but bracing for what may come.